Understanding the energetic and flowing nature of our emotions challenges us for learning about life. The most essential characteristic of energy is that it flows, that it moves, that it cycles. Its movement is circular and not linear, spiraled and not one-dimensional. The DNA is a spiral but not one that extends on one dimension, but that climbs at every cycle one step higher in evolution. The DNA is a very good metaphor for life as a whole, and also for our emotions. When blocking one emotion, you block them all. Let me explain more in detail why this is so. The most typical about emotions is that one emotion, after a culmination point occurs, changes into another. As a whole, they form a dynamic kaleidoscope. This awareness then brings us to acknowledge that it is unhealthy to keep stuck in one emotion, thus locking it into stagnation and impeding it from changing. We will then also see that it is dysfunctional to suppress one emotion, or, even worse, to interchange one emotion for another by repressing the one we find too queer by another that we find more acceptable. The essential characteristic of emotion, thus, is that it is but the continuous movement of the cell plasma itself. Pleasure-inducing sensations cause an emotion of the protoplasm originating from the nucleus and emanating toward the periphery, while painful sensations of fear rather cause a contraction of the system and thus a movement of the sensation from the periphery toward the nucleus. As a result of these expansion and contraction movements in the plasma responding to the nature of the incoming emotional stimulus, we can talk about two basic emotions: lust, which is expansive, streaming from the nucleus toward the periphery, and fear, which is contractive, returning from the periphery to the nucleus. We can as well put it in much simpler terms and conclude that emotions are how we perceive the natural flow of the vital energy in our organism. Anger or sexual desire are centrifugal forces from the cell nucleus toward the periphery of the cell and beyond. We can say that they have a bioelectrical function of discharge. Vice versa, the emotions that are centripetal, such as fear, contract the system and thus charge the system bioelectrically. It is only because modern science is blind to the bioenergy function within the organism that it is not able to measure and was not able to develop devices to measure the bioelectric charges and discharges that emotions cause to happen within our cell protoplasm. This very movement, either expansive or contractive, of the cell plasm according to the outflow or inflow of bioelectric currents in the form of emotions, is exactly what makes the living and the difference to non-living matter. This is not just a word game. Language describes organ sensations. This is so because our body movements reflect our inner bioplasmatic movements in a stunning manner. What is conveyed here is not a singular phenomenon, but a sort of holistic, total expression of our being, a Gestalt, an information that cannot be given by verbal language alone. To summarize, we can observe a bipolar, directional movement of our emotional energies manifesting as expression and impression. Expression is the bioenergetic flow from the nucleus to the periphery of the cell, and accordingly from the innermost of the body toward the energetic, ethereal energy reservoir of the aura. We talk about the expression of our emotions. We affirm that emotions need to be expressed. Impression is the bioenergetic flow of our emotional energies from the cell's periphery toward the nucleus, and accordingly from the aura into the cellular protoplasm. We talk about impressions when we talk about vivid, emotional, sensational or pictorial experiences, the impression a sunset made upon us, the impression that a film left on our memory surface, the impression we had of a certain person. After this functional explanation of our emotions, it may be more easily understood why the distinction of emotions in good and bad as part of traditional patriarchal education has done almost irreparable damage to psychosomatic wholeness and as a result fragmented us into split personalities that function in a schizoid split. Let me demonstrate this fact by an example. Let us have a look at rage, the quintessentially bad emotion within a civilization that builds on the repression of emotions. Rage is considered as per se dangerous, while people who experience temper tantrums once in a while, be it children or adults, are considered as imbalanced and maladjusted to the society. The truth is that they are better adjusted than those who repress their rage. Why we have so many wars, violence and genocides in the world is not because we are too emotional, but because we are too little emotional. And guess who is more likely to die from a coronary or a cancer? Those who express their anger or those who suppress their anger? The answer is obvious. Those who suppress their anger.